The purpose of Complementary User Entity Controls, CUECs, is to clearly define the responsibilities that customers must uphold for a SOC 2 control environment to function as intended. These are not optional suggestions. They represent explicit reliance boundaries that auditors consider when forming their opinion. If an organization's control relies on an action or configuration performed by the customer, such as enabling multi-factor authentication or restricting data exports, that dependency must be documented. CUECs help prevent blind spots where neither the service provider nor the customer is performing a necessary safeguard. When written effectively, they connect the dots between service commitments, trust services criteria, and shared accountability, ensuring that trust is grounded in collaboration rather than assumption. Understanding reliance implications is key to appreciating why CUECs carry so much weight. When an auditor issues an opinion on a SOC 2 report, that assurance presumes customers are fulfilling their part of these controls. If customers fail to execute their responsibilities, say by leaving administrative accounts unprotected or failing to review access logs, the integrity of the assurance weakens. The report must communicate these limitations clearly so readers know what is and isn't covered. In practice, this means CUECs also shape risk acceptance. When customers knowingly disregard them, they assume responsibility for resulting exposures. Transparent communication keeps accountability balanced and avoids misplaced confidence in shared systems. Writing strong CUEC statements is a matter of precision and clarity. Each one should specify the actor, who performs the control, the action required, the frequency of performance, and the type of evidence that demonstrates completion. Avoid vague wording such as maintain secure configurations. Instead, specify measurable, testable expectations like enforce multi-factor authentication for all administrative accounts. Consistency in terminology matters. Terms like tenant admin or customer environment should match what appears in onboarding materials and contracts. Clear language transforms CUECs from fine print into operational guidance that customers can follow confidently and auditors can interpret unambiguously. To maintain integrity across the SOC 2 framework, every CUEC must be mapped to the relevant trust services criteria. Linking each control to specific criteria, whether from the security baseline or optional categories such as availability or privacy, ensures complete and traceable coverage. Dependencies between customer and organizational controls should be explicitly noted. For example, a CUEC that complements the provider's encryption key management. Avoid overlapping or redundant statements that could create confusion about accountability. This mapping process helps auditors verify that each CUEC supports a defined assurance objective, while also providing customers with a transparent rationale for why their participation matters. Certain CUEC themes recur across most service organizations because they reflect universal shared responsibilities. Identity management often tops the list, requiring customers to federate accounts properly, enforce multi-factor authentication, and control role assignments. Endpoint security appears frequently, covering antivirus, patching, and secure browser configurations. Network configuration expectations, such as firewall or proxy use, ensure safe communication between customer environments and the service. Finally, incident cooperation duties, reporting suspected breaches or unusual activity promptly, ensure timely detection and resolution. These foundational CUECs create a baseline of mutual security hygiene that aligns customer practices with provider commitments. Distinguishing bad versus good examples of CUECs illustrates why clarity matters so much. A weak CUEC might say, customers should follow security best practices, which is unenforceable and meaningless to auditors. A strong one states, customers must enforce multi-factor authentication for all administrator accounts at all times, creating a measurable expectation. Similarly, a good confidentiality-related example could read, restrict API keys to approved IP ranges, while a processing integrity example might be, perform quarterly access reviews for tenant admin accounts. Precise statements help customers act decisively and help auditors understand exactly how reliance is divided. Good CUECs are practical, verifiable, and free from ambiguity. Distribution and acknowledgement transform CUECs from legal fine print into living obligations. They should appear in multiple places, within the system description, customer documentation, data processing addenda, and even order forms. Organizations may require customers to acknowledge acceptance during onboarding workflows through checkboxes, signed agreements, or electronic acknowledgement. Maintaining version histories and issuing change notifications ensure transparency as CUECs evolve. This approach reinforces that shared responsibility is a condition of service, not an afterthought. When customers know what's expected up front, compliance becomes easier to sustain and less contentious during incidents or audits. Operationalizing CUECs means turning them from text into tangible action. Organizations should provide customer enablement resources, administrator guides, setup checklists, and secure default configurations to make compliance intuitive. Product teams can embed guided setup wizards or automated health checks that help users detect and correct noncompliance. When gaps appear, such as missing MFA or misconfigured retention settings, clear escalation paths must exist, whether through in-app notifications or customer success teams. This operational support turns the concept of shared responsibility into a practical reality, reducing friction and improving collective assurance quality. Finally, evidence and verification ensure that CUECs do more than exist on paper. Attestation checkboxes or onboarding acknowledgements capture formal acceptance. Telemetry signals, such as API usage logs or configuration scans, can indicate whether customer environments meet CUECs expectations in real time. Spot checks during enterprise implementations validate compliance for high-value accounts. In certain regulated industries, support teams may request confirmation of specific CUECs, such as encryption key handling or deletion routines, for due diligence. By pairing policy with verification, organizations elevate CUECs from policy statements to operational trust mechanisms that protect both sides of the service relationship. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. A mature program defines structured support and exception handling for customer-side responsibilities. There will always be cases where a customer cannot meet a prescribed CUE due to technical constraints or temporary conditions. Rather than ignoring these gaps, service organizations should provide a formal process to log exceptions, document compensating controls, and set remediation timelines with designated owners. Each exception should include an approval trail, typically reviewed by security or compliance leadership, to ensure informed acceptance of any additional risk. These exceptions must also be revisited regularly, confirming that temporary deviations do not become permanent vulnerabilities. This transparency protects both parties, demonstrating responsible governance over shared control dependencies. Privacy-focused CUECs extend the shared responsibility model into the domain of data protection and compliance. Customers may be required to capture a lawful basis for processing before transmitting personal information to the service or ensure consent mechanisms meet regulatory expectations. Data minimization and labeling practices at ingestion reduce the likelihood of overcollection. Customers should also follow agreed retention schedules by configuring deletion or archival settings within the product. In rights management scenarios, they may need to verify requester identity before initiating a deletion or export request through the provider's interface. These privacy-aligned CUECs strengthen compliance outcomes across diverse legal frameworks and help prevent accountability confusion between controller and processor roles. Availability-focused CUECs emphasize that uptime and resilience are shared objectives between the provider and the customer. Customers may need to maintain redundancy in their own network or power sources to prevent local outages from being misinterpreted as provider failures. Coordination on maintenance windows avoids conflicts that could disrupt service continuity. Some services require client-side configuration timeouts, retries, or queuing to optimize resilience. Customers holding backup data should test restoration procedures periodically to confirm integrity. These actions reinforce the message that reliability is a partnership and that customer preparedness contributes as much to continuity as provider architecture does. Under processing integrity-focused CUECs, customers play a critical role in ensuring data remains complete and accurate before, during, and after transmission. For example, users should validate input data before sending it to the service, reconciling outputs against expected results. If integration jobs or APIs are used, monitoring and retry logic must be implemented to catch transient errors. Customers are also responsible for handling exceptions gracefully, logging, investigating, and reprocessing transactions when necessary. This mutual diligence ensures that data quality remains verifiable from end to end, preserving trust in analytical outputs, financial transactions, or compliance reports generated through the system. Confidentiality-focused CUECs protect information once it leaves the provider's direct control. In bring-your-own-key environments, customers maintain custody of encryption keys and must follow rotation and revocation practices consistent with organizational policy. Exported data or downloaded reports must be handled under strict access and disposal procedures to avoid leaks. Role-based access control within customer teams ensures that only authorized personnel can view sensitive information. Even after delivery, customers remain stewards of confidentiality, ensuring that provider protections are not undermined by insecure local handling. Defining these expectations explicitly prevents misunderstandings about where protection obligations start and end. Multi-tenant architectures introduce unique configuration realities that require deliberate customer participation. Many SaaS platforms offer per-tenant settings, such as logging retention, MFA enforcement, or admin role scoping that the customer controls directly. Ensuring least privilege and separation of duties within the tenant environment becomes a customer responsibility. The system description should clarify these expectations and highlight any automated safeguards or alerts available to assist customers. By maintaining tenant-level configuration hygiene, users uphold their share of the SOC 2 commitments, preventing isolation failures or exposure that could otherwise compromise shared infrastructure. Modern SaaS admin portal design can transform compliance from reactive to proactive by embedding CUC enablement directly into the product. Secure configuration presets, contextual tooltips, and inline guidance link to documentation explaining the rationale behind each control. Warnings can alert administrators when critical settings, such as MFA or retention limits, are disabled. Dashboards that surface configuration drift or CUC compliance metrics help customers self-monitor their environments. These design patterns reduce dependence on training alone and make shared responsibility an interactive part of the user experience, reinforcing the partnership between product design and assurance. Documentation and training form the backbone of customer enablement. Role-based content tailored to administrators, developers, and compliance contacts helps each group understand its obligations. Quick start guides, video walkthroughs, and knowledge base articles with screenshots make compliance tasks approachable. Release notes should highlight any updates affecting CUECs so customers can adjust configurations accordingly. Continual education ensures that awareness remains current despite staff turnover or evolving system capabilities. When customers are equipped with clear, accessible guidance, adherence to CUECs becomes a predictable habit rather than an afterthought. Measuring adoption and control health provides tangible evidence that shared responsibilities are working in practice. Telemetry can report the percentage of customer tenants meeting CUEC baselines, such as MFA activation or encryption settings. Severity thresholds trigger outreach by customer success or account management teams, who can guide remediation for high-risk cases. Trend reporting keeps leadership aware of collective security posture and highlights where further automation or education may be needed. Integrating these insights into business reviews ensures shared accountability remains part of the customer relationship, not just a compliance artifact. Incident communications involving customer responsibilities must follow a coordinated framework. Timely notification expectations should be defined upfront, how quickly customers must report detected anomalies, and what information should accompany the report. Providers, in turn, may require specific logs, screenshots, or forensic details from customer environments to complete investigations. Post-incident reviews should include both parties, producing joint lessons learned and agreed improvements to CUECs where necessary. These iterations transform incidents into opportunities for refining shared controls, improving both trust and resilience. CUECs also intersect with legal and contractual alignment. Data Protection Addenda, DPAs, should reference the customer's specific responsibilities, with a matrix showing how CUECs map to shared obligations. Agreements must include change control language, specifying how customers will be notified of new or revised CUECs. Jurisdictional differences, such as EU data processing laws or US sector regulations, should be acknowledged to avoid conflict between contractual and operational language. Legal clarity ensures that shared responsibilities are enforceable and understood across compliance, procurement, and privacy teams. To ensure consistency, sales and customer success teams must be aligned with the organization's CUEC messaging. Enablement sessions should teach how to explain CUECs as a value proposition, proof that the organization promotes transparency and partnership in security. Checklists embedded in onboarding playbooks remind staff to confirm customer readiness during implementation. Periodic business reviews can revisit adoption progress with defined escalation paths for unresolved non-adoption risks. This alignment turns CUECs into a living part of customer engagement rather than a compliance footnote. Awareness of pitfalls and corrections keeps CUEC programs relevant and credible. Overloading customers with too many responsibilities leads to fatigue and noncompliance, while vague or untestable statements undermine assurance. Some organizations mistakenly list CUECs that contradict default system configurations, causing confusion. Periodic reviews should prune outdated items, refine language for clarity, and align controls with evolving product design. This maintenance preserves trust, ensuring that CUECs remain both actionable and defensible in the face of changing risks and technologies. In conclusion, effective CUECs represent the practical handshake between provider and customer, each contributing to the integrity of the SOC2 environment. Clear, testable, and contractually aligned statements ensure that reliance boundaries are visible and defensible. Operationalizing them through design, telemetry, and training transforms shared responsibility into measurable assurance. When executed well, CUECs reinforce that trust in modern cloud services is not granted by default but earned continuously through cooperation, transparency, and accountability. The next step for organizations is learning how to interpret, share, and leverage SOC reports effectively, turning documentation into actionable confidence for every stakeholder.